Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fresh Perspectives podcast. My name's Rachel Lauren, and I'm so glad you're here with me today. A lot has happened on the podcast since my last episode, and I feel like things are really starting to take shape, which I'm so excited about. So last episode, I had my first ever interview episode with my good friend Matt, who talked about not only being the voice behind MTV on social media, but how he carved his own path at MTV. He really talked about transformation. And so if you're curious how he did that, I highly recommend listening to last week's episode. But I'm super excited. I feel like ever since launching that episode, the podcast is becoming more real. I feel that my niche is kind of revealing itself to me. I feel like it's evolving into a podcast for the curious, featuring those who are kind of carving their own paths or who had an experience that really changed their way of thinking. And today, the topic I want to focus on is just starting. So, as I've been speaking to potential future guests on the podcast, I usually do kind of a pre chat with them to understand their story and kind of how I want to tell their story. And in the few people that I've spoken with so far, these are people in my life who I feel inspired by, that I am so excited to hopefully be able to share with you. I noticed this theme emerge from a lot of them. So a lot of people who are doing new things and engaging in alternate ways of thinking. A lot of them talked about just starting and just starting, not knowing where they were going, being surprised by the way things actually turned out. But all of them said there came this inflection point in their life where they said, I just have to do this and I am open to seeing where it goes. And I think that's super inspiring because a lot of us sit in fear of not knowing, what is this path? And we kind of get paralysis and we don't start. And so in thinking about some of the barriers to just starting, I've written out 8 of those barriers, and I want to talk through in today's episode um, how I'm talking back to those 8 barriers, because these were things that I experienced starting many things in my life. There are a lot of things that I have started from scratch, and I will say that these 8 barriers are always thoughts in my mind. So I want to share that with you because I think that they are going to change how you think about starting a new project, a new job, a new relationship, whatever it is in your life. If you're looking to start something new, these 8 thoughts are probably coming into your mind, and I want to help you overcome them. So the first barrier to just starting something new is this feeling of intimidation by the destination. So I was speaking with a friend of mine who decided that she wants to run a marathon. And naturally, she's like, oh my gosh, can I actually do this? Like, I am so scared um, of this lofty goal that I've set for myself. And what I would say to that thought is good. I'm glad you're scared because it means you're doing something that you've never done before. So I think the fresh perspective that we can take to fear of a lofty goal is telling ourselves that that feeling of anxiety and fear is actually a good thing because it's something we experience when we want to do something that we've never ever done before. So if you're going through life cruising, not feeling afraid and not feeling that little voice in your head that says, can I actually do this? Then you're not in places and spaces where you're growing. So, the first thing I want you to do is when you feel that little voice or you hear that little voice in your head that says, oh my God, this is scary. I want you to respond to that voice and say, good, I'm glad. This means that I have an opportunity to grow. The second barrier, which again is thinking about the destination, so thinking about the end goal, is the thought of, well, I want to do this thing, but I don't know what the end result looks like. And that is okay. So if we think about the marathon example, that's a very concrete goal. Like you are going to do this, you want to do this in the future, but maybe you have a little inkling or a little thought of, oh, I really want to help people, or I really want to learn, or, um, there's this thing that I really want to try and do. So my advice is if you have that little spark inside of you, but you don't know what the end destination looks like, start anyway. I think that the most important thing that you can do and can talk back to when you hear this thought of, well, I'm not going to start because I don't know where I'm going, is start and be curious. So use your curiosity as a guide to figure out, as you go down this path, maybe I'm interested, I really want to learn. So I take a class at a college. And after that class, I'm like, I don't love being back in school. I don't love this part of it. Okay, maybe I can fulfill this desire to learn by going to this program at a museum or traveling or whatever it is. So, part of figuring out what it is you actually want to do is this curiosity, which leads to trial and error, which is going to give you feedback that is going to help you figure out what your end goal can look like. And the thing is, you're not going to learn more about what that looks like by doing nothing and staying where you are. So you have to take that first leap of just doing it because you're going to find out more about what exactly it is you want to do along the way. You're not going to find out more by staying in the same place and not starting. Let's talk about starting because this next barrier, number three, is all about starting. And I think that that barrier is this feeling of paralysis around determining what is the first best step to accomplishing this goal. So when we have this lofty goal, and I know I've experienced this myself, it's like, oh my gosh, like the first thing I do when accomplishing this goal has to be like perfect. It has to be the right thing to do. And my feedback back to that thought is the best first step doesn't actually exist. If you talk to people who have founded businesses, who have done amazing things in their life, everybody has had this unique path. So when you're feeling like, I don't even know where to start, my advice to you is to maybe think and write down a few different ways you can, embark on this journey and then pick one of them. And if that one thing, that one first step maybe doesn't get you to the path that you want to be on, then try the next step. Everything is a journey, and the first thing that you do on embarking on the journey does not have to be perfect and probably won't be perfect. Let's get into the next barrier. And this is spiraling about the long journey ahead. And this is something that I think everybody does. And I'm going to go back to the marathon example. So you need to run 26.2 miles to complete a marathon. That is a fact. That is how long a marathon is. And if you have not run a mile before, you've not run significant mileage before, you might be thinking about that 26.2 and being like, how the heck am I going to get to 26.2 miles when I can only run 3 right now? And my advice when you get into this spiraling about how the heck am I going to do this goal that feels like I know it's actually a fact that I can't do this right now, is breaking it down into those smaller goals of what you need to do this month, this week, today to embark on that journey of accomplishing that goal. So when we think about a marathon, you spend a significant amount of time training, and your training progresses over time. So your first week of training might be 10 to 20 miles, and it all depends on what you're starting from, what your base fitness is. But each week, you're slowly increasing it. And the advice with running is that you should never increase your mileage more than about 10% each week. And I think that this advice can be applicable to not just running, but any goal that we have. We don't have to think about making these massive shifts and massive jumps week to week. We need to think about what can we do to get 10% closer to our goal each week. And then instead of stressing that you need to run a marathon in 6 months, you're more so focusing on, okay, I have a goal of doing this 6 months from now. This week, I'm focusing on these workouts, I'm focusing on these three things, and that is all I need to worry about this week. And when you lay out this goal for yourself, you then become less focused on this crazy amount of mileage that awaits you down the line because each week you're doing something small to get to that final goal. So if you feel yourself spiraling about this long journey, break it down into smaller attainable goals. This thought I want to address is the feeling when you want to start something new. There's sometimes a little voice that I know gets into my head that says, well, why should I even bother? Someone's already doing this, or someone has already done this. And my advice that I would give to you, if this is a thought and a barrier that you're coming upon, I would challenge you to say to that thought, nobody has done it like I can do it, or like I will do it. Because the truth is, nobody else can do something the way that you will do it. So I challenge you when that thought comes in and you're thinking, well, why should I even bother starting this? To really reflect on what you uniquely bring to the challenge or to the situation. The next barrier that I have is obsessing about the perfect plan. And this kind of goes back to obsessing about the perfect first step. So let's say, you kind of determined your step, you've laid out, here's what I'm doing for the next 6 months to train for this goal. We sometimes then get stuck in that plan and making sure that that plan is perfect and that it feels perfect and is 100% guaranteed to get us to the goal. And the fact of the matter is that a perfect plan doesn't exist. Like I said before, everybody's journey is different. And I think it's really important, actually, to have flexibility in our plan. Because when we're starting and we're putting the plan together, we only have the information that we have at that time. But as we embark on the journey, we get feedback and we get to learn more about what's working and what's not working. And so our plans will be adapted. So if you're stressing about even starting something because you don't think you have the perfect plan doesn't exist and it's going to change anyway. So do not obsess about the perfect plan. My seventh barrier is being scared to give up your current state. And what I mean by this is, let's say you want to start your own business or you want to be a consultant or whatever it is. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm so scared to quit my corporate safe job to go and do this thing that might fail. And my advice there is it does not have to be all or nothing. So I think as humans, we really have this black or white thinking and this all in type of thinking. But I'm going to give an example of a time where my mom helped me overcome this thinking. It's not always black and white, and we can always change a situation. So, an example from my mom is when I was choosing a college, I was so stressed about choosing the right college and the perfect college. And in my mind, it was like, oh, if I don't choose the most perfect college, then I messed up. I'm going to be unhappy, et cetera, et cetera. And my mom said, Rach, you can choose whatever college you want. If you're not happy there, you can transfer. And I don't know why I never ever had that thought. It really felt like this end all be all decision to me. And when she said that I could transfer, that kind of alleviated so much stress and pressure from the choice that I was making. And so I will say to you, you can always transfer, you can always change the plan. And also, it does not have to be all or nothing. So you don't have to, on day one, quit your job so that you can start your side hustle. Do your side hustle while you're doing your corporate job and see how that works and learn along the way. And I think when we do this, again, we get that feedback. So we might find out, oh my gosh, like fitness coaching isn't actually what I want to be doing. I'm more interested in nutrition or mindset or psychology, whatever it is. So it definitely does not have to be all or nothing. And you can kind of experiment in a safe space. And again, take those little risks along the way until you feel that you're at a point where you want to make a significant change. But that feeling does not have to come and does most likely not come on day one. And then my last barrier is, oh my gosh, I have these dreams. I want to train for this marathon. I want to do this, but I don't have the time. And I think that this is the most challenging barrier because time is finite. We all only have 24 hours in a day. There's no hack to get more hours in a day. That is a definitive amount. And I recognize that this is super challenging and is going to be very unique for everybody's situation. So we all have things in our lives that require our time and attention that are not super flexible, whether that's your job, whether that's your family, your friends, your relationships, whatever it is. I do believe in my life and where I am right now that when something matters enough to me, I find ways to make it happen. There's weeks where work is really intense and, there's all these barriers going on. But to me, I figured out, okay, what do I need to kind of puzzle piece around to find the time to make it happen? And so I would gently encourage you to look at your calendar and think about, how can I Jenga this and how can I intentionally schedule time to put towards my goal? And that's going to look so different for every person. So maybe it requires waking up earlier, staying up later. Maybe you use a 10-minute walk in the middle of the day as not only a way to get fresh air, but a way to dedicate thinking time to something that you want to accomplish. But it's kind of getting creative and thinking about how you can break through and find that time in your schedule. So, those are 8 common barriers that I find exist to standing in the way of just starting something new. And I'll recap those really quick. So, the first is being intimidated by the destination, which I say good. That means it's a good goal. The second is maybe you don't know what the destination is. And my advice to that would be just start and be curious and follow your curiosity, and you'll kind of discover what that is along the way. The third is paralysis of determining the first best step. And to that, I would say the first best step doesn't exist. Just take any step. And again, be curious and see where your curiosity leads. The fourth is spiraling about the long journey ahead, to which I would say break it down into smaller, more attainable goals so that you're focusing on what you need to do this week and today to get to that final destination. The next is, well, why should I even bother when someone's done it before? To which I would say, yes, but nobody's done it like you. And you're going to add your own pizzazz and your own point of view to this thing that you're trying to start or you're trying to do. The next is obsessing about the perfect plan to get to your destination, to which I would say the perfect plan doesn't exist. So start with the plan that you have, and you can always make adjustments along the way. The seventh is being scared to give up your current state of being, to which I would say it does not have to be all or nothing. It does not have to be black and white. You can always transfer. And the last, number 8, oh, I don't have the time to start this. I would encourage you to look at your calendar and try to identify pockets of opportunity, and to really think about, if this matters to me and if this is important enough, I can find ways to make this happen. So this has been another episode of the Fresh Perspectives podcast. I hope this is helpful. And in writing this episode, like I said, I thought of all these barriers that go on in my head, and I hope that in debunking some of these, you feel more confident about starting. Because I will say, I think the people who are brave enough to start, and I say brave because it is brave, it's, doing something new, and inherently it feels risky and there will be challenges along the way. But I think if you're brave enough to do something new, it's really admirable, and you just never ever know where it can lead. And it might lead to someplace totally great. It might lead to someplace totally unexpected. You might learn totally new things along the way. You might become a whole new person and a whole different and better person along the way. So if you're thinking about doing that big, scary thing, my advice to you would be just do it. This has been another episode of the Fresh Perspectives podcast. My name is Rachel Lauren, and I can't wait to speak with you soon.